and good afternoon and welcome to the Finance and Performance Policy Committee. Sorry for the slight delay. My name is Zahira Naz. I am Chair of the Finance Committee. This meeting is open to the public today, but before we make a start, I would like councillors to introduce themselves. So over to you, Gareth.
Councillor Gareth Slater, Saudi Ward.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Councillor Eldad from Manor Castle.
Good afternoon, Councillor Abdul Qayyum for Firth Park.
Councillor Douglas Johnson, City Ward and Sheriff Housing.
Hiya, Martin Phipps for City Ward and Green Group spokesperson for the committee.
Martin Smith, Councillor for Durham Totley.
Glynis Chapman, Councillor for Mosborough Ward.
Mike Leabury, Councillor for West Ecclesfield and Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, everybody, and welcome. The meeting today is open to the public. However, please note Appendix 2 to Item 8 and Appendix 5 to Item 3 are not available to the public and press because it contains exempt information as described in paragraph 3 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act. If members wish to discuss any information, we will need to ask the members of the public and press to kindly leave for that part of the meeting, and we will halt the webcast. The meeting will be webcast and the recording will also be available for people to view later through the Council's website. Sheffield Live may also be recording. We have received no public questions or comments or any statements for today's meeting. Please can I request all mobile phones and other such equipment are switched on to silent. There is no fire test planned for today. If there is an emergency evacuation, please take instructions from the Town Hall staff. The assembly point is Tudor Square. So we've already introduced ourselves. Item 1, apologies for absence. There isn't any apologies for absence for today. Exclusions of public and press, like I mentioned earlier. Appendix 2 to Item 3 and Appendix 5 to Item 3 are not available for public and press. Any declarations of interest? No. Thank you. Item 4, minutes of the previous meeting. This is on page 11 of the agenda pack. Are we all okay to approve as a correct record? Yeah, that's approved. Thank you very much. There are no public questions and petitions for today's meeting. There are no member questions for today's meeting. Item 7, work programme. This is on page 19 of the agenda pack. Over to you, Rachel.
Thank you, Chair. The work programme is laid out from page 19 onwards. If you want to leaf or whether you digitally go to page 22, you can see the proposed additions and amendments since the previous meeting. And there's quite a few new items being added there that you can see. And then you can see from page 25 onwards what's set for forthcoming meetings. There's nothing more to report on that, Chair. Obviously, it's open to you as a committee for discussion, and I'll pass back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Sorry, is there any questions or comments? Councillor Every?
Thanks, Chair. Page 22, the update on the proposed lease of land adjoining Wagon and Horses Public House. This went through a tortuous process up until about a year ago, and it seems to be coming back. Is it the landlord or the leaseholder that have asked for adjustments to the lease? Do we know?
I don't know. I don't know whether Paul will be able to update on that or.
That being the case, can we make sure we have an early briefing on this so we know fully what the background is, please? Thank you.
Yes, so we'll get some clarity on that and then ask for a briefing. Is there any other questions or comments? No. Are we all agreed with this? Thank you very much. Item number 8 is the capital approvals, and this is on page 29 of the agenda pack.
Hello, yes, I'm Damien Watkinson. I'm the Finance Manager for the Capital team, here to present the proposed additions and variations to the capital programme that have been brought through this month. Starting with transport, regeneration, climate change, we have 267k on feasibility for a safer roads scheme on the A57 between the junction of Coldwell Lane and the Derbyshire County Council boundary, likely to be a full scheme of around 1.8 million once feasibility is complete. Just to say, this is funded by the DFT Safer Roads Fund. It was a joint bid with Derbyshire Council. They will be carrying out the majority of the work. This will be feasibility on the works up to the boundary with Derbyshire by ourselves. We've also received a grant, active travel grant, to deliver a pedestrian crossing at Clarkson Street to improve access across to the Children's Hospital. This is 105k initially for feasibility and detailed design for that scheme. The total grant available is £400,000. We have bringing forward approval for up to £2 million to start an e-bike hire scheme in the city. This investment will be in the upfront costs of establishing the scheme, which is to be delivered by a private provider. Our SEC's investment will largely be in the infrastructure around the parking and setup, capital and associated fees and works around the establishment of the scheme. The bikes will remain the property and responsibility of the operator, and there will be a negotiation with the successful tenderer about the operation of the scheme, but that will not be at a revenue cost to the council. There has been a saving on the demolition costs of the John O'Gaunt pub, which is going ahead, just recording that. The Bradway 20-mile-an-hour scheme will be moving through to delivery, so that's adding an additional 54k to deliver that scheme. The Creswick Lane crossing has had a change of scope, resulting in an increased cost of 92k. It's moving from, instead of being a zebra crossing as a result of road safety audits, it's now to be a parallel crossing to include bikes as well. Townhead and Leopold Street is part of the City Region Sustainable Transport Settlement funded City Centre Connections scheme. We're adding in a further 474k to a total of 1.1 million to deliver stage one of a design and build contract for a total project that's expected to be around £6 million to improve active travel infrastructure and public realm in that area, connecting up with the rest of the Transforming Cities Fund City Centre improvements that are going ahead. The Darnall and Attercliffe Transforming Cities Fund programme is coming to have its full budget put into place of approximately 27.5 million. That's an increase of 21 million from the 6 million that was in place originally for early statutory undertaking works to be done in terms of diversions, etc. This will be improving large amounts of walking, cycling and bus priority measures all along the Darnall-Attercliffe corridor. I've listed some of those within the report. There's also Appendix 5, I believe it is. I've included some maps that provide more detail on that scheme. Under adult health and social care, we're looking to via budget from the non-means tested accelerated adaptations grant into the statutory disabled facilities grant budget, £1.1 million to reflect how that work is now being delivered, much more of it being on the statutory mandatory side and less on the non-mean tested side. And it's also to reflect that we're slipping approximately 1.5 million of this into next year, just currently engaging with a new provider to hopefully speed up delivery of the private sector adaptations that are undertaken under those contracts. Also under adult health and social care, just a slight reduction in the budget allocation for relocation loans, and that's just reflecting a reduced demand that they've seen in the area for those. Under housing, we're looking to put in a total of 170k across the two existing stairlift contracts, just to take them through to the end of the current financial year. Education, children and families, we're putting in the 23k to improve Nethergreen Infants bathroom facilities. This has been as an impact of the increased nursery provision that's happening there on site. There's also an increase of approximately 62,000 to a total of 731 across the Gleedless and Woodhouse special needs integrated resources that are going to deliver an additional 20 places across those two sites. The Limpsfield School windows We're removing the current budget from that scheme. It's not quite complete, but it is having to be retendered for the completion of those works. So at the moment, we are removing this budget for that scheme. It's going to be retendered and relet as part of a wider programme of window replacements across the school's estate. Just to note as well, a couple of savings that have been realised at the Stocksbridge Integrated Resources Hub and Manor Lodge Primary Expansion Scheme. We've also had the Brunswick School is due to be rebuilt underneath the DFE's Primary School Rebuilding Programme. As part of that, the council are liable to meet abnormal costs, which would be outside the normal build of the school. These relate currently to some drainage works and the relocation of an existing footpath. So we're putting in place up to 250k at this point. I believe we've had information back that it's not actually that much. I think it's going to be around 150k, but we're just approving this amount at this point. So we've got sufficient headroom to deliver any works that the DFE consider to be our responsibility. And then finally on the approvals, there's the Spring Street Kennels demolition. A building's been brought forward for demolition to reduce health and safety risks and ongoing maintenance costs around this vacant site. What we're also bringing forward is a separate appendix detailing some slippage and reprofiling of approximately £37 million of spend into future years across the whole of the capital programme. I've also included a brief note which gives a general explanation of the reasons why there always tends to be a level of slippage within the capital programme once schemes enter that delivery stage, and that counts for approximately half of the value that's been brought forward. I've also done a little analysis in there of the overall figure by stages and categories of spend. There are different drivers for different types of schemes and schemes in different stages, which reflects why we get slippage. So, for instance, we have some schemes that are emergency allocations, and if emergencies don't occur, they get moved into future years. So some of it's demand-led. We have some sprinkler systems that are installed depending on whether they're required by the inhabitants of certain flats. So you get different reasons for slippage amongst some of these different categories. So I've just tried to outline some of that there. Just to note, there are no major financial impacts anticipated other than those we're already aware of in the capital programme, such as around the Loughcastle site and the GP hub at SAPA at Southampton Parson Cross that we've reported through monitoring that are potentially going to experience budget uplifts. But like I said, we've been reporting those on quarterly monitoring for a while, so it's nothing we weren't aware of. I'd just say at this stage last year, we'd already undertaken one major exercise of this nature. So the fact that we're only entering into this one now, I take as a sign that this position's improving, but we need to continue to work with project sponsors to try and challenge some of that over-optimism at early stages, just to try and improve that position further and try and reduce slippage of that nature. And I think that's everything.
Thank you very much. Any questions, comments? Councillor Chapman?
Yes, thank you. Page 51, 52. There are two stairlift contracts coming to the end, one in February, one in March next year. I take it there is a new contract, and we notice that the shortfall is being taken by reducing the money that's going forward. Are we going to have enough money for new contracts?
Yeah, I believe so. Those business cases are being brought forward now through the approvals process to put the new contracts in place. So yes, that's being reviewed now, and yeah, there's allocations within the HRA for that work.
Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the analysis on slippage. I'm not going to highlight any particular project, but that overall analysis is really interesting, very helpful. I'm just wondering, has any work been done, or should it be done, in comparing our profile in Sheffield with maybe other neighbouring authorities, core cities? Just that might give us a benchmark as to how the capital teams perform. I'm sure they're doing great guns, but just I think that'd be very useful. Thank you.
I did look at a piece of work similar to that, I think, last year. I got a colleague of mine to look across that, and we did benchmark fairly evenly across those, and I did have a quick look myself again just these last couple of weeks, and you are looking at around 20 to 30% within a capital programme across the core cities. But I will try and do a little bit more work on that and just get some more up-to-date figures. It becomes different authorities report it in different ways as well, which makes it kind of difficult sometimes to compare apples and apples. But the high-level figures that I was looking at were spitting out, that similar level of slippage within the programmes, some higher, some lower. But again, obviously, depending on the size of programme that local authorities have as well. But yeah, on the work I have done previously, we do look around similar levels to other core cities.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Levery.
Thanks, Chair. Page 43, Damien, the Creswick Lane crossing. I wasn't sure originally whether we were going to put the pedestrian crossing, but if it's where the bike lane is, it's right on the junction with Yule Lane, which isn't a very smart place to put a crossing. Can we have some clarification on where they intend to actually put it, please, if that's possible?
Yeah, I'll get some further information.
Thank you.
Councillor Douglas.
Thanks, yeah. I just want to say again, it's an impressive range of things that are underway here, some really good projects there right across the board, so that's really good. So I'm really happy to approve all of these. I just want to draw attention to one of the items in the slippage report, and it's always interesting to see what is going on there, but it talks about the levelling up on Market Tavern line. If you want to, it's on page 65. Just on the Market Tavern line, it talks about work to be done still to make it safe and watertight, and I'm going to be a bit facetious here. It might be a bit late to make it safe and watertight as the building's been demolished in somewhat controversial circumstances, but I'm sure it's just a budget line error. I wonder if you could just take that away, Damien, and check that one.
Yeah, apologies for that. Yeah, I'll speak to the project manager on that one. Yeah.
We don't need to say anything more about it, do we?
Councillor Phipps.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Damien. Lots of good stuff to approve this month, and I'm looking forward to see what comes from the comes forward on the e-bike hire scheme as well. That would be something I thought of interest. I'm happy to approve all the capital approvals. I was just looking at the Bradway 20 mph one, which sounds good, but I was just looking at what it covered out of interest, and it seems to cover a decent amount, but it doesn't cover Bradway Road, 20well Road, or Abbeydale, that section of Abbeydale Road South that's near it, where actually seems to be the majority of collisions taking place. And I wonder just if that's something maybe we'll come back to as part of the council's Vision Zero in the future, like making sure it's correctly prioritised and we're still tackling the worst offending places first. But I guess it's just potentially a bit of a missed opportunity, and I think some other commenters did note that 20well Road wasn't included, but does pass residences directly there.
A colleague from Transport at Spear, so yeah, I think he's got it.
There we go. So my name's David Whitley. My job title is Transport Programmes Manager. So yes, I'll be able to help you one or two instances there. The council's current programme and strategy for 20 mile an hour is sign-only schemes. So there will be a number of roads that are either distributors or particularly classified roads that won't be currently included within 20 mile put my teeth in 20 mile an hour programmes that are sign-only. I think the one exception to that, where we're looking at a 20 mile an hour being backed up by speed cameras. Average speed cameras is along Exclusion Road as part of the A625 safety scheme. So I think that'll be the main reason why the roads that you've suggested or highlighted there aren't actually included within the current sign-only scheme. Yeah, you also mentioned Vision Zero. So yes, that's very much a piece of work that we're doing at the minute. So Vision Zero is where we move away from prioritising our collision reduction schemes from considering sites that include killed, seriously injured and slights, to focus more on spots as well as corridors for whether there's been more killed and seriously injured collisions. It's a reasonably big piece of work, and again, depending on what actually comes out of the Transport for City Regions work that the City Region are currently doing in terms of what that means for Sheffield, we may see quite a significant increase in spend linked to collision reductions. So doing a corridor like the A621 at present is slightly beyond our capabilities in terms of local transport funding that we currently have. But although we don't yet know what Transport for City Regions means for Sheffield, one of the items that I know that the City Region are looking at is again having a look at investing a little bit more across the county in collision reduction schemes. So it's a little bit of a wait and see on that one, but hopefully that answers your questions.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, David. Thanks, Damien.
Thank you, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to offer Martin that I'm councillor for that area. I also live on one of those roads, so there's a lot of fine detail. So I agree with what the officers just said, but if you need more info as to what else is happening, I can give you that afterwards if you want.
Thank you. Because we have got a transport officer here, I've got questions. I might as well ask. So mine's on regards the Attercliffe plans. So obviously after today's approval from this committee, there has been an initial consultation, I've been told. Will there be another consultation in regards to the final plans and the implementation of this scheme? And depending on the feedback that you get from any further consultation, is there scope to change any of what we're agreeing today?
So I think the honest answer to that is that in future there'll be quite a lot of engagement and information, less so consultation on the basis that there's been a number of consultation exercises along the corridor over a number of years, albeit the initial consultation happening in the difficult period in 2021 during COVID restrictions. Is there an opportunity to change? I think again, yes is the honest answer, but it wouldn't be without consequences in terms of cost of the scheme. So usually particularly when we're constructing larger projects like this, if there's a delay to a project at our request, that comes back to us as a penalty. I can't say that there isn't options to change things, particularly at the periphery. This is a big transformational scheme in terms of what's being provided to and through Attercliffe, and then ultimately the wider Upper Don Valley. But again, it's a big, and I must stress that changes do come at costs, and that's pounds as well as delays in terms of time.
Okay, so in terms of if there was an underspend, for example, on this scheme, would we be able to use some of that money? And the reason I'm asking, I am also a ward councillor for that area, and in the last few months we've had a number of public meetings and engagement sessions with local residents around road safety concerns. And here, there's a £27 million scheme that's happening, but people who actually live in the ward are requesting road safety measures that are not on this list at all. For a lot of our residents, it doesn't make sense to have a list of schemes for that area that most people did not ask for or were consulted, but actually they are telling us what they need, and at the moment we're saying we don't have money for that. So, I'd really appreciate some conversation around this, maybe outside this meeting, but it's really important that we are able to listen to what local residents are telling us, because this is all about road safety, isn't it? And they are telling us where they do want road safety measures in that area.
So a big part of the scheme is actually around creating alternatives in terms of how we get around the city, and it's worth just reminding ourselves that as a city we've declared we have declared a climate emergency. So that is a key reason for for trying to improve alternatives ways of getting to and from the Upper Don Valley, which which as we know, the Lower Don Valley, which as we know is a key area for investment in the council over the next 10 to 15 years. I think that's a key part of this particular scheme. I do hear what you're saying in terms of the local community, and I completely understand. Although we've tried to mitigate it slightly by saying the money that we've got for this scheme comes through a specific government grant administered by the South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority for a particular purpose that we've put forward. It's not a scheme that is being forced on us. It's something that we've put forward, and it is a large amount of money. Whereas what we were saying earlier when we were talking about collision reduction schemes within our local transport plan, or local area neighbourhood transport complementary programme as it's now called, there's actually a much smaller amount of money available to us. It's about £3.5 million a year, where we have to deliver an awful lot of other smaller accessibility, collision reduction, public rights of way, crossing programme comes out of that's prioritised on a citywide basis. So yes, it's definitely we can definitely have the conversation outside of this particular forum. But I think I just wanted to highlight some of the restrictions that a lot of our grants that we get through come with. So it's not quite as straightforward as if there's a reduction, can we do this instead? We would have to have those those conversations with the funder, who in this case are South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority.
Thank you very much, and I do appreciate the cycle lanes. I think it's really important to reduce carbon emissions, but if the roads don't feel safe, people are less likely to get onto bikes. So it's really important that we do look at other issues as well. But anyway, there isn't any further questions and comments. This capital approvals does come with recommendations for approval. Are we all approved? Yeah, that's approved. Thank you very much. Thank you. Moving on to the next item, and this is on page 9, the Council Plan Outcomes Framework, on page 77 of the agenda pack. And James Ford will be presenting.
Good afternoon. I'm going to, as per standard practice now, walk you through the Q2 performance summary. I'm going to start with a general update. So in Q1, we saw a further maturing of the wider performance systems in the council, with the Economic Development, Skills and Culture Policy Committee aligning with what we call Tier 2 of the performance system, enshrining its own set of measures to be used by that committee that link with the outcome measures and provide a further level of granularity. In terms of additional measures that we add periodically to the framework, in the report there's a list of new measures joining us this time, a number that were approved by the people strategy, so essentially HR measures that strengthen our corporate framework, including measures around sickness, employee turnover, etc. There's a new measure proposed in there for Q2 around the median number of days from contact to receiving an occupational therapy assessment completion. Service status to be included alongside the measure that we have for occupational therapy waiting lists as a bit of a improvement to that measure. As they're making improvements in timescales, it feels it's a more insightful metric where they've got a high level number of referrals per month can sit alongside the number of people being assessed, the number of people assessed in a timely manner alongside that waiting list. So they're putting that forward as a bit of a partnership really to help enrich that area. Going forward into Q3, and we'll discuss Key Stage 4 results later, we're proposing in Q3 we will bring in new measures around apprenticeship destinations and Key Stage 4 attainment performance for SEND support and EHCP pupils. And then just looking forward into Q4, just slight delay from Q3 due to data available through the new contract. 4 measures relating to the new Everyone Active leisure services contract that include participation levels, ethnicity and diversity of users, customer satisfaction and financial monitoring measure, which is yet to be agreed. Moving on to the updates and strengths and challenges across the 5 outcomes of the Council Outcomes Framework. I'm going to start with an update on the measure around the percentage of New England-made education, health and care plans completed in 20 weeks. This is an update on a measure that we've seen quite a few times here, as it's been not performing to target. Pleased to say that in September this year, it saw its highest level for well over a year, reaching 45%, which puts us in line with England performance and about 8% above core cities performance. We're bringing this as an update because this is still one to watch. It's on trajectory to recover. That 45% is just for that month. So when we get to April, we'll be able to take a view back and look how we compare comparatively when we're able to put together the year's performance, but it does show that we're starting to recover. And the narrative from service is that the aim is to achieve that SCC target of 55% by April 26. In outcome 1, there are some challenges to address today. So the first is pupils achieving level 4 plus English and Maths at Key Stage 4. That's GCSE results. So this time for 24-25, we've seen a further decline in Sheffield's results at 60%, achieving that score overall this time round. It's noted that these pupils were the cohort that were took into secondary schools during the COVID pandemic. However, if we look at the chart that I've included in there, you can see while there's been an impact across all kind of comparison, that one we've seen Sheffield start to deviate from that. It's only small, but we are deviating in terms of performance. In respect to that, and these figures coming out very close to when this report was produced, the Education, Children and Families Committee are going to discuss this in depth later this week. I'd like to bring a further report back to this committee in Q3 that allows us to do 2 things. Explore some of the demographics that are hinted at here as well, particularly around the significant gap between the highest and lowest performing schools and pupils with disadvantaged pupils that are disproportionately represented in areas served by low performing schools. And to also, it will be ideal time to bring in the 2 measures that have been requested around relative performance in this measure for pupils who are on education, health and care plan or subject to SEND support. The next challenge in this area is the proportion of care leavers aged 19 to 21-year-olds who are participating in education, employment and training. We flagged this last time, but this time represents this measure now falling away from the target and getting worse than target for over a year. So we wanted to bring this to committee's attention for further scrutiny, really. Service have provided a strong narrative for what they are doing about this, particularly in terms of the Leaving on a Positive project, which has so far had 80 young people referred into the project. They've yet to do the evaluation of that project, and we had to see those, this is quite longitudinal data, see that come through. But that paired with the Staying Close programme that's been focusing on support for care leavers who are leaving residential care through drop-in sessions, employability support sessions, CV writing, and a number of job fairs that they're running alongside the Your Hired Toolkit that I've launched in November that supports the employer side of things as well, so employers can understand what care leavers need to enter employment. So I think what we're saying is this is one to watch, one that we hope to see start to improve from those initiatives that I mentioned there, but we'll keep it high in the mix so you can continue to monitor it. Again, in this area, another challenge, so this is the measure around the number of children killed or seriously injured in road accidents per 10,000 who are 0 to 15 years old. So in 2024, just recognising this is quite longitudinal data, so this won't include the tragic fatalities that we saw in 2025. We have seen that rate increase to 4.4, which translates to 45 children injured because there were no fatalities included in that data, thankfully. There is a breakdown within the pack, and we did have a knowledge briefing on this. There's quite a bit of data underneath here that transport colleagues have been able to provide. But as you can see, the majority of those injuries are from pedestrians with a lower number through driver rider, it's called that in the national framework. There will be riders of cycles or other devices and vehicle passengers. I think as transport colleagues already mentioned, their response to this is that Vision Zero piece. And the target in there is to, well, the eventual target is to eliminate them, but by 2030 halve that number that we're seeing in terms of overall and for children. I think as colleagues already said, there's a robust bit of data analysis being done to look at the areas that are we're seeing the most injuries, collisions, etc., and try to target them. And particularly this is children as well. There's a strong piece of work with South Yorkshire Safer Roads partnership with the police and local communities and schools, where the transport team are able to go into schools and talk to pupils and parents about road safety. Moving on to greater neighbourhoods. Strength A4 is pleased to report that the number of green flag accredited parks, woodlands and green spaces, we've maintained it for another year. This is including the existing green flag sites, the new activity of Hillsborough Park, and a development of vision plans for both Norfolk Heritage Park and Botanical Gardens. There's a hope next year to include plans for Shirebrook Valley into the submission, so if that achieves green flag status, we'll be able to increase our number by 1. And we've already got the highest number of green flag awards per core cities, but we'll be able to improve on that further. The last one in this area is a number of youth work sessions. Service and ourselves recognise this as one dimension of a measure. It's getting people through the doors of youth services, and into next year they do want to look at maturing this into terms of looking at engagement, feedback, ultimately outcome and impact. But pleased to report that what we've seen over this period compared to the same period last year, we had about, if we take it to the last year, about 16,000 youth service sessions. Is about 27,000 being uptook in that time. So we've seen a real uptake in that area. Moving on to outcome 3. People live in care and engaged communities that value diversity and support wellbeing. We've seen an annual update to the Adult Social Care Outcomes Framework measure. Proportion of adults who use our adult services who reported that they've had as much social contact as they would like. This is a national benchmarked survey that we've seen as exceed our target of 43%, achieving 47.1%. And service have outlined some of the interventions that have been taking place that they believe have led to this, including support for unpaid carers and young carers, establishing better links across our primary care networks, a number of initiatives and activities around dementia care, to name a few. No major updates in outcome 4, but moving on to outcome 5, a city on the move, a growing and connected and sustainable city. We've seen the percentage of major and minor planning applications decided on time. For major, they've remained at 100% and 82% for minor in Q2, which is for minor above target. There is a challenge in this area. So the total city greenhouse gas emissions, again, this is quite longitudinal data. So we're talking about 2023 data, that's just been released. So it's even more longitudinal. So in 2023, we had about 2,000 kilotons of CO2 emissions compared to the target of just under 1,500. That target was required to make longer-term progress towards a 95% reduction in greenhouse gases by 2030. However, it does represent a 4.7% reduction on the previous year and puts Sheffield kind of mid-pack 4th in the core cities in that area, showing that everyone's grappling with this issue. Service have provided some narrative around a number of projects that they're undertaking. Counsel, major retrofit programmes on low-income household, solar panel installations, active travel infrastructure, the green to grey. SIMCA have large-scale retrofit schemes and zero-emission transport programmes in place, as do other organisations. And it's an acknowledgement that 2030 target is going to be challenging, but there's now a number of levers being put in place that they're hoping are going to start to catch us up on this. So it's very longitudinal, but it's one that we'll keep up there and continue to monitor against that target. Lastly, is an internal measure. It's our corporate health outcome, and it's our recent employee survey result around engagement with our employees. The employee survey takes place every 12 to 18 months, the latest one occurring in spring 2025. Average scores across the engagement index questions that include advocacy, loyalty and pride have continued to increase, with 2 key metrics achieving the target score of over 7. Feedback's been gathered from the survey and been reviewed, and 4 key themes and cultural campaigns have been put forward for the next year, including recognising, keeping, developing and listening to our people. So, Chair, that concludes the Strengths and Challenges report for this time. I'll open it up for any questions.
Thank you very much. James, is there any further questions or comments? Councillor Phipps.
Hiya, thanks for that. Thanks, Chair. Thanks, James, for the report and for everyone's work on this. I was just looking at outcome 3, so the people living in caring, engaged communities, and on the strengths on the proportion of people who reported that they had as much social contact as they would like, who use adult care and wellbeing services. So it's great that we're over target. I'm sure that was like quite a lot of effort and work went into that, so that's fantastic to see. I'm just wondering why nationally the target's quite low from the outside. I'm sure if you're up to date with maybe it's reasonable. It just feels like from the outside we're saying it's okay to have a target where over half of service users report they don't have as much social contact as they would like. I presume as a council we're just following national targets, but I'm just wondering why the target is 45.3%, and I don't know, locally, do we think that's enough? Do we want another one as well? I don't know.
Yeah, so happy to come back on that. So yeah, the reason why the comparative would is be obviously benchmarking and where other authorities are. I think it's probably fair to say adults and wellbeing committee has been very good at upping the targets when it's been recorded. We've seen that maturity happen. I think if it's okay, we'll take that question back to them and say, looking at where you're going trajectory-wise, this is a scope here to kind of nudge this up a bit, because that's what we're trying to encourage throughout the performance system, not to rest on our laurels and move it on. And we've seen that evidence, so I'll take that question back to them.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. 2 questions. First of all, thank you very much for the incredibly comprehensive report. I note at page 90 you talk about the performance measures that have been introduced, and we've had that a few times now. Do you ever stop any? It's just one question. The other one, forgive me, I've forgotten which page it's on, but there was a couple of performance measures around the planning department, so the number of planning applications decided and so on. Do we measure the performance of planning enforcement? Something I get a lot of casework on, not in terms of the outcome, but just the speed at which something is investigated and a decision taken. Thank you.
Yeah, certainly. So come back on your first one. I don't have that level of detailed knowledge of planning. What I will take away, because I would expect that to be underneath in the tiers 2 and 3, that we've discussed. So I will take that away, Councillor, and find out where those measures are picked up, if indeed they exist, which I'm sure they do. It's just my lack of my knowledge in that particular area. Your question around, do we stop them? Not yet, but I think we've got some coming up. So we have one measure in outcome 1 I can just think of now, which is the Building Successful Families scheme that has now come to an end. It was a really good proxy for prevention within the city, and while we're continuing locally to do the same work, there's going to come a time when we say this is no longer the right thing to measure, or the scheme's expired and we need to look at a different one. And I think we'll have that as the local government outcomes framework is published. I think before Christmas now. I know there's been a slight delay, but we'll probably take stock and say, there's now something national that replaces this and we want to switch it out. So yeah, I think we'll do that as part of the reviews. What's not come up, I think because of the maturity where we're at and the time we've had with the framework, we've not had this opportunity yet, but I can certainly see ones at the horizon where we will need to probably bring a decision about it to either stop a measure or consider a more valid alternative.
Councillor Livery.
Thanks, Chair. 3 questions, please, James. English and Maths 4 plus, on page 93, it's really disappointing to see that fall off this year. And it's significant in the fact that it hasn't followed the trend from previous years. So it's really important for us to get an understanding. You're going to bring us a breakdown by educational care plans and SENDs, but also can we have it by parts of the city? In other words, have parts of the city kept up, and where has it fallen away? Because I have a sense I know where it's falling away, and that's probably on the estates and the large state schools where they'll be struggling. So that's the first question. Secondly, fatalities and serious road accidents. It's gone up 50% from the previous 4 years. That's a huge increase. And it's rather interesting, in my view, that this coincides with the stopping of the Mayoral Authority providing school buses. And areas like the north of the city, where there aren't many service buses, a lot of kids now are walking because they can't actually get a bus at all because the bus is full that's coming down there. Has the volume of kids walking to school gone up significantly, and is that the underlying cause of what the problem is? I've raised this with the Mayoral Authority. I've asked them to consider how they're going to reintroduce school buses when the franchising comes out as a matter of priority. So that's the second thing. Finally, page 97, youth work sessions. Now, you've broken it down by LAC. Now, of course, we have very little in the north, and then suddenly, unbelievably, in Q2 in 25-26, it shot up to be one of the leaders, and we see no change in what's happening on the ground. So can I ask where that's come from? We've gone up to 1,129 sessions, number of kids, and I reckon we're bundling along around about 40 or 50, which is what's been happening for the past number of years. So if I could have that explained, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, certainly. So I'll work back through from both. So those numbers come from case recording done by youth services in terms of registers essentially taken at the sessions and recorded in their system. If you want to get some further detail from the head of service, we can certainly do that either through a report here or potentially a knowledge briefing, councillor.
Yes, please. It might well be something's happening in one of the wards, but not anywhere else that's just skewed it, but I don't know what it is.
Excellent. And then certainly your question around Key Stage 4 results, we can bring that back, but we're a variety of different demographics and splits we're going to bring back. So it's just a question really, would we be splitting that by locality again or by ward? We can even do it down to school, actual individual school level as well. So we'll probably bring a completely comprehensive report to allow you to see the full detail. We've got that available. And then forgive me, councillor, your question on the killed and seriously injured, was that about children walking to school? Yeah. Yeah, I do have a supplementary pack of data. That's right. What that doesn't include, unfortunately, is children that are walking to school. The closest I've got is that the number of children that were injured were pedestrians, 25 out of the 45. So I'm unsure how we answer that one, or if the data is available, or whether we do put a question to, I think transport colleagues have left, haven't they now? Transport colleagues to potentially pick up that question.
Yeah, it's just that period at the beginning and the end of the school day.
Oh, so it's timing, of course, yeah. So yeah, so see if we've got I'll have to check with them, we've got the granularity of whether, I see what you're saying, whether those incidents occur during the travel to or from school. Excellent, yeah, no problem.
James, do we not already have a knowledge briefing booked with education? I thought we had to look at Key Stage 4 and the ECHP plans.
Yeah, we're just finalising the date in either late January or December. What I might suggest then, because it will include the key, I would discuss the Key Stage 4 overall, the new measures that are included in the around send, and might be be wise to include the youth work element in there as well as one briefing from Education, Children and Families Committee members, committee officers, should I say, not members.
That'd be great, thank you. Councillor Phipps?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Sorry for coming back in. There was just one thing leading on from a question that Councillor Livery raised. So on the data that we hold for the youth session work, it was raised that we have it by LAC. Underneath that, do we already have the details by ward? Because that would be really interesting to see if we do have that. And it doesn't have to be in this report. I just mean for our interest as all individual ward councillors, I'd be interested in seeing that. Because in City Ward, we know that there's stuff that sometimes go on that doesn't necessarily correlate to the actual children in the ward. And actually, there's not that much going on in City Ward for the children in the ward. So that would be interesting to see. And just one other thing, on the Everyone Active Leisure Services new measure, that's really good that we're going to be reporting on that. And I appreciate we don't have the data to show until we've gathered it. So look forward to that in Q4. I'm just wondering, when it comes to that and we see the report, will we have the ability to break down feedback by service? Because I'm just wondering, what if we see that, like, Everyone Active's doing a good job? Basically, will we be able to see by, like, area, like, is the ice skating being delivered well? Is the gyms being able to delivered well? Are the swimming pools? Do you know what I mean by facility type? Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, so to come back on your first one, let me take that one away, because I think that you're right. I think this is really exciting that we've got these, and we picked them from there's a wider number of measures that will be going to Community Parks and Leisure Committee. So I will take that question away and look at the granularity, because there are a number of questions at the time that I can't confirm exactly. And then you make your point around the wards. So yes, we will have it, because localities are, well, wards are essentially a ward aggregation. So as long as it's recorded where it was, we just might have some patches, because if there is a youth service in just one end of a locality, it may show the other wards as zero, even though it's service in that area. But yeah, we do collect it at that level.
Councillor Every?
Yeah, just coming back in again on youth services. A lot of stuff provided in the north, what little there is external provision. For example, Sheffield Wednesday, does service measure the number of children that are attending these sessions? Is that included or not? Because the LAC funds some of this stuff, because there's no provision by service. Do we know?
So sorry, Council, is that for externally provided services? Again, I'd have to go. We have what we're looking at here is where there's been youth provision provided by our teams and set up. It's where there's voluntary and other sectors that aren't included in that. I'd have to take that one away. Again, if I could maybe wrap that question into that knowledge brief, and then we could have a look at the wards, we could have a look at internal and externally delivered services.
Yeah, because there's two wards that get nothing from service. It's all external.
Okay. Yeah, then there's a comparator between the two where it's delivered internally and externally. Yes, there's a number of questions.
I was astounded by how the north have gone up so much.
Yeah, so if we include those dimensions in it, with a number of questions we can start to triangulate in that knowledge briefing. Excellent.
Councillor Dodd?
Thank you, and thanks for the really comprehensive data pack that you shared with us. It's really great to be able to drill down into so many of the different aspects of what the Council's doing. I was particularly pleased to see the progress that the team have made on EHCPs, and particularly the approach that they're taking to kind of not drive just to meet the deadline, but to try and maintain quality at the same time. I think credit to them for reversing what was a downward trend and is now somewhere that's much more comfortable, and that we still hope that we'll see further progress to come. So thank you to you and the team for working on that. I share Councillor Livery's concerns about the Key Stage 4 outcomes, and look forward to our future briefing on that. It would be good to explore more about what's going on in that, and particularly where the gaps are. I'm also curious, as other colleagues are, about the youth work figures, and I suppose some of what this conversation's revealed is that the numbers we're given are kind of without context. what does it mean for there to have been 1,000 kids participating in a youth work activity? How does that compare to what demand might be for youth work? How does that compare to what levels of deprivation there might be in that area? What other services might be available in that area? What we're trying to do through that youth work? How are we, like, what would good look like for an amount of youth work in a given area, and how far away are we from that? I guess is the question that I'm sat with, because it's quite likely that across the city need varies because other provision varies, because kids' needs vary, because household ability to provide other activities varies. So it's quite hard to know, is this number high, low, good, bad, without that kind of comparator information. So perhaps in that further follow-up briefing, you can share a bit more about what does this look like in other core cities? What do we base our youth work allocations on? That kind of thing, that would be helpful for us to get a sense of. Yeah, thank you.
No, certainly, I think it's raised what's in the measure description around this is one facet, and it needs some more dimensions to broaden it out. The reason it's left in there is that local government outcomes framework is going to cover this one, but then back to the question about what do we take in and take out. We don't have to have everything that's in there in our report, but it might be that we want to look at different facets of it, like impact, for example. But certainly, I think what we will do is ask service for a more rounded piece on youth provision stemming from this measure, and looking at some of the dimensions and facets.
Thank you very much, James. The outcome 2 framework shows that the council is making steady progress against its priorities, and for me it's really important we are not just tracking activity but focus on real outcomes for residents and communities, and this committee will continue to look at performance improvements being driven in areas of work where progress is slow, and I welcome the knowledge briefings. We had the transport one a couple of weeks ago, and that was really useful. But also looking forward to the education, children and young people knowledge briefing, because I think it's really important that we are able to have deeper dives in areas that we may be concerned about. But thank you very much for the report. This report does come with recommendations for approval. Are we all approved? Yes, that's approved. Thank you. Thank you very much, James. Moving on to item number 10 now, and this is establish lease agreements of various properties. And this is on page 255 of the supplementary agenda pack. Thank you.
Thanks. I'll just briefly take you through the report, and then we can obviously take any questions. So the report is seeking approval from the committee for 3 lease agreements at below best consideration. The 3 agreements are proposed at 0 rent, and decisions at below best consideration do require Finance and Performance Committee approval. There's a legal framework in place that allows for, in appropriate circumstances, the council to agree lease agreements of this nature at below best consideration, and that can be on the grounds of the social, economic and environmental benefits provided by the community organisations, and that's outlined in more detail in the report. So the recommendation is approval of these 3 leases, and this falls under the council's new community asset transfer policy, which was approved at Strategy and Resources Committee on the 12th of November. So community asset transfer refers to usually around 3 areas sit within that. It's to a third sector organisation, it's usually at below best consideration, and also based on the grounds then of the social, economic and environmental benefits that those community organisations provide. So that's the justification for the below best consideration decision. So there's 3 agreements outlined in the report. One is in relation to building that is referred to as SADACCA building, which is on the Wicker, and the proposal for that building is a 125-year lease. There's also a proposal for an intermediate lease on 6 commercial units which sit under and to the side of that SADACCA building, and that's for a period of 10 years. And then there's a third lease proposed, which is in relation to a small building that gets referred to as Ravenscroft Bungalow, which is within the Richmond ward in the Stradbrook estate, and that is proposed on a 15-year lease to an organisation called the Link Community Hub. So just to go through each of those in a little bit more detail. So the SADACCA building, the organisation SADACCA currently has a lease agreement on that building. It run for 30 years and expires in 2027. SADACCA run a wide range of community support and activities from those buildings. They support the African Caribbean community in terms of daycare and domiciliary care, and they provide support and activities for the diverse communities of Sheffield, obviously well placed on the edge of the city to reach out to communities and some of the high needs communities in the area. They provide a range of community events and activities, social activities, and also space for small third sector organisations, including kind of start-up third sector organisations or organisations that need temporary, short-term and affordable space. The proposal for the SADACCA building is a 125-year lease. There's a range of factors that have been taken into consideration in terms of the duration of that lease, which are outlined in more detail in the report. But that includes the fact that SADACCA have leased and overseen that building since 1986, and there is also substantial level of investment required in that building, which SADACCA are committed to overseeing and undertaking, and that will run into several millions. Also, a longer lease duration does give confidence to external funders that that organisation obviously sits in the hands of the community, and that investment is there for the community. Just to also mention in relation to the SADACCA proposal, the council did undertake a detailed stock condition survey in the summer of the building, so that report was a substantial detailed report which gave us a real clear indication of the condition of the building and gives a real sense of the investment that's required, and there is substantial, like I say, substantial investment needed. That will lead to the production of a 10-year schedule of works which would sit alongside the lease agreement and be appended to the lease agreement, with an expectation obviously of that investment being kind of secured and prioritised around the things identified in that stock condition survey. So the other lease agreement that links to the organisation SADACCA is a proposed agreement of 10 years as an intermediate lease on 6 commercial units that sit underneath and to the side of the main SADACCA building. This is specifically to provide some level of income to support the required level of investment in those buildings, so in recognition of that investment that's required, in terms of repairs, maintenance, and there's also compliance works that are required. The funds from the commercial units would need to be ring-fenced for that purpose and for that investment, and that links to what I've just said about that schedule of works that would sit alongside the lease. And there's also a hope, I think, from SADACCA and ourselves as well, that funding may also then help to attract some match funding and bring in some additional funding to support the required works. So they are the two proposals relating to the organisation of SADACCA. The third lease agreement outlined in the report relates to an organisation called the Link Community Hub, who are based in the Richmond ward and focus around the Richmond and Stradbrook area. And it's in relation to a building that's called the Ravenscroft Bungalow. The building is not currently in use. Until recently it was being used by one of the council's teams. Our sensory impairment team were using it for ad hoc office space and for storage. The building has been declared as surplus, no longer required, and is vacant at the moment. So it sits within a very high needs area, and the Link Community Hub are a well-established community organisation. They've been running for over 12 years in the local area and have been reaching out to us for some time for some additional space. They really need some additional space to be able to provide further support and services in the heart of the community. So they provide vital support and services, including around drug and alcohol support, healthy eating and domestic abuse support. So that space would enable them to kind of, maintain that hub in the heart of the community and provide those vital support and services. The proposal is for a 15-year lease agreement. The group hope to secure some funding to invest in the building, to upgrade it cosmetically and make it more appealing and attractive, for use by the community. And they also believe that having that building will help them kind of grow and develop, like I say, their support and services right in the heart of that community. So just to say, in terms of the lease agreements, in terms of any community asset transfer, there is a robust process in place in terms of assessing organisations in terms of their suitability for asset transfer. So the groups are expected to put together a robust business plan with financial forecasts. So in this case, both groups have obviously gone through that process. and have provided those details. So the report also does go on and highlight, you know, there are benefits to the council out there in terms of community asset transfer. They are outlined in the report. And we also have to test that these decisions obviously meet our strategic aims and objectives. And again, that's outlined in the report in terms of how that meets the city goals and the Sheffield plan. So the recommendation to committee is then asked to approve in principle, approve those 3 lease agreements. Should that approval be given today, Property Services would then go into further, more detailed discussions with those community organisations to agree leases, and obviously that's subject to agreement with our Chief Property Officer and, you know, further agreement then with legal. So the ask is for the approval in principle of those 3 lease agreements.
Thank you very much. Is there any further questions or comments? Councillor Smith?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes is the short answer. These organisations do great work. Can I just ask, so for example, SADACCA, would a condition of the lease be that the certain community activities and support continue for the duration of the lease?
Yeah, so there'll be a user clause built into these lease agreements, and that user clause is framed around that community benefit and that community use. So obviously, yeah, we can only justify below best consideration on that community benefit. So yeah, there's a user clause that the building has to be used for the benefit of the community.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Johnson?
Yeah, just to say this is very welcome. It's been a long time coming, hasn't it? Obviously, you know, SADACCA's been there for many years, many decades, yeah, it's really good. I mean, I think what's good about this is the focus on the sustainability. It's all thought out there through the model, I think with appropriate safeguards in case thing goes very wrong in the future when, you know, when another generation moves on, because this is, you know, for a long term there. So I think it's definitely credit to the community buildings project there. I just wonder if we could just say a bit about the sort of safeguards for the council and, you know, and for, you know, the long-term community, you know, just to make sure that, you know, whilst we know now that SADACCA is in sound and responsible hands, and we've got that, you know, the business plan in place, that, you know, that it's there for perpetuity really, and that it's, you know, safeguarded for a generation or 2 to come. Is there anything you can really add about that?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, in the lease agreements, obviously it is built in there around the user clause. So it has to be, the buildings have to be used for that community benefit. There are also conditions within the leases around the maintenance and the condition of buildings. So buildings, you know, we expect buildings to be kept in a good condition. So they are there to be used by the community, and they are, you know, compliant, they are safe, they are, you know, environments that people feel welcoming and inclusive and can enter into. So there are agreements, yeah, there are terms as standard within the lease agreements around maintaining the building, so maintaining the condition of the building, and like I say, the use as well has to be. I think we're not overly, you know, prescriptive around that, because things change and needs change, don't they? So it is around community use and that benefit, but there has to be some flexibility, doesn't there? Like, you know, like the needs of generations change, don't they? And organisations have to shift and change around that, and we recognise that. But there is that clause in there that provides that safety and assurance for the council that should that building no longer be being used for that purpose, or should the building not be maintained to a standard, that we do have the ability to intervene.
Great. Well, thanks very much. Just want to say thanks, because it is really good to show that, you know, because they have got a track record of being there and somehow sustaining to date, that they've actually got a sustainable way forward. So that's very pleasing. Thanks.
Thank you very much for this. I also, you know, agree with comments made by colleagues. These leases do give SADACCA and Link the security to plan and attract funding, and continue with their great, you know, work that they're doing with local residents. So it's a positive, practical step that strengthens community provision, and I'm pleased to support the recommendation. Sorry, Councillor Levery, did you want to come in? Councillor Levery.
Thanks, Diane. It's an innovative agreement, this, which includes the interesting bit of the 10-year lease agreements on the units. which is there to raise funds to do the refurbishment of the building and also to get match funding. So should all the units be occupied and deliver, have we done the financial modelling to show that that, together with match funding, will complete the renovation that's necessary? Thank you.
We are stepping into the confidential element, I think, if we respond to that. So we can respond to it, but it would have to be in the confidential bit.
Councillor Dodd.
Thanks, and thanks to you and the team for this great bit of work. It's really brilliant to see the community buildings project kind of starting to have some material impacts. And thanks to the colleagues from SADACCA who are here joining us today as well for all the work that I know you will have all put in to try and make this possible too. I think it's brilliant that we've been able to secure the building and the community organisation and the brilliant services that they're providing through this way forward. I just wondered, with both of these agreements that you've come to, it's obviously a kind of new phase of work for the council, and we're hoping that there might be more community buildings that we're able to transfer into community ownership or community management in the coming months. I wondered if you could share a bit about what you've learned through this process and whether there are any things that you think would be helpful for us to know, or whether there are things that you're going to be kind of thinking about as you embark on doing this with other partners across the city in the future. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've worked with communities and closely with communities my whole career, and so I sort of thought I came into this like, yeah, really knowledgeable. No, one of the main things I've learned is just how nuanced every set of circumstances is. Like, I knew community organisations are nuanced. I know communities are nuanced. I knew buildings probably was my least familiar element, but actually once you put all of those factors in together, every set of circumstances is so unique, and I think it's so important that we see that, we recognise that, we value what that means in terms of provision and support for communities, what these buildings kind of mean and their value that they hold. But it does also mean that we've got to be really nuanced about how we respond and how we work with groups, and I think there's been something really then about kind of trying to work at the pace of organisations as well, like working at their pace whilst also making sure that our bureaucracy kind of moves along as well, you know, because they are complicated, they're complex agreements. So I think balancing those things is kind of key as well to doing this. But then just really listening to groups, and I think us being flexible and open to talking about buildings and spaces. You know, one of the buildings we're talking about today obviously wasn't a community building, wasn't a community space. So I think it's having that flexibility as well, isn't it, about, you know, kind of what spaces communities can make use of and the vital difference it makes to them.
Councillor Phipps.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to echo colleagues' statements and sentiments. Really welcome this, especially the leases for SADACCA, who do really incredible work with the community, and hopefully this helps funding the restoration of the building and sustainability. So thank you for all your work, and yeah, hope this helps. And thanks to all the officers who have put in a lot of work on this, and for all the organisations that worked with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further questions or comments? No, so this report does come with recommendations for approval. Are we all approved? Sorry. Are we going to turn the webcast off? Thank you. We had to pause the webcast and ask members of the public to leave because there were questions on the exempt part. The members of public are now re-entering the chamber. Thank you very much for leaving the chamber for that part. Okay, so this report did come with recommendations for approval. Are we all approved? Yep, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you. And that's the end. That concludes the meeting for today. The next meeting of the Finance and Performance Policy Committee will be on Monday, the 19th of January. Thank you very much, everyone.